we've spent, I think, 40 minutes going through the suggestions you've made. First of all, let me say thank you very much for your consideration of the ballot paper, and thank you very much for the suggestions you made. As usual, it's very helpful. I want to make that clear. I'm just going to I'm going to go down sequentially with the questions and tell you the changes we've made, and Sharon is going to put them up on the screen. And we'll start with question 1. Now, question 1 is a complicated question. There's that is undoubtedly the case, and we have taken on board all of the observations you made, and in the heel of the reel we've only made one change, and that is, you'll see, it now reads, to ensure climate change is at the centre of policy making in Ireland as a matter of urgency, and so on. So we have sort of really addressed and given effect to your suggestion that this shouldn't be put on the long finger. And so that's the only change we've made. And I will make the only other observation I'll make is in relation to the suggestion that there'll be a separate vote on each of the 3 examples we have given of powers and functions that might be conferred on the existing body or the new body. And for the reasons I think I said earlier, we don't think that would be appropriate. These are only examples of the type of powers, but they as Anya mentioned, what this is focusing at is quite clear. So we have not acceded to that suggestion. So that's question 1. Question 2. We take the point about electric vehicles, and we have changed that to having low carbon public vehicles. So the state should take a leadership role in addressing climate change through mitigation measures, including, for example, and one of the examples is having low carbon public vehicles rather than electrifying. What? Oh yeah. Sharon has suggested to me that rather than go back all over it again, that I take a vote on the questions as we go along. So can I revert to question 1? How many are in favour of question 1 in its current form? Show of hands, please. It's very hard. When you do a count.
It's fine, I can see it's unanimous almost. Yeah.
What?
It's unanimous.
It's unanimous, is it?
Pretty much,
yeah. Well, it's a majority anyway, is it? Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much. Then on question 2, there was a suggestion towards the very end from one table that this be put in legislation or be even put in the Constitution, and that wouldn't, we've concluded, be appropriate. So we're leaving it as it is, that the state should take a leadership role in addressing climate change through mitigation measures. And we've put in the various examples, and one of the examples is now phrased as having low carbon public vehicles. So I'll take a vote on that. Who's in favour? Well, that does look unanimous, or look close enough to being unanimous. Thank you very much on that. Yeah.
Mike, you have the mic there?
Yeah.
Please.
It's possible for them to actually mention constitutional change, but under ancillary recommendations. If you could maybe just point it out to them.
Yeah, I'll come to that in the end.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much for mentioning that. Now, I think we were agreed on question 3, and then in relation to question 4, 5 and 6, we didn't actually consider those questions. And then moving on to question 7, there's quite an amount of change there. You have your question 7 up?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've broken it down into question 7A and question 7B. So question 7A is the state should end all subsidies for peat extraction and instead spend that money on peat bog restoration and making, and there is a change here as well which should be highlighted, making proper provision for the protection of the rights of workers impacted. So just I'll come back to the wording shortly, but just to see the breakdown. First of all, 7A is end all subsidies, and then when we go to 7B, you have a choice if the state should end all subsidies, should it do so, and you have 2 options, either immediately, and we're taking account of what you said, on a phased basis, and we've put in over a period of 5 years, and we've done that for consistency with question 1. We've picked 5 years for consistency with question 1, and then going back to the wording, you remember there was some debate about retraining and re-employing and then maybe redundancy payments and all of that. I mean, it doesn't make sense to get into that sort of detail, and my view is that what is important is to get across that if this move impacts on workers, existing workers, that proper provision should be made for the protection of their rights. So that is a kind of a general terminology which would cover everything, the rights a worker has in such a situation where they're made redundant. So they're the changes to section 7. As I say, the division between 7A and 7B, and the time factor, either immediately or phased out over a period, and then the change of the wording to protect the members' rights, to protect the employees' rights. So I'll take a vote on that now. Are we? I think there's certainly a majority there. Then where did we go from question 7? Question 8, I think there was no issue on that for us to consider. And then question 9, I just have to remind myself what question 9 has. Oh yes, yeah. We did hear your views on, and several views on question 9, and we considered it, and the conclusion we came to was that no change was necessary. Although, as I say, we did consider everything you said. So can I put that to a vote, question 9? Thank you very much. That seems to be carried as well. Question 10, we didn't consider that. Question 11, we have made no change to question 11. The point that was raised was if there was a suggestion to add a further provision in relation to grants. And to be honest, none of us are informed sufficiently of the law on grants, and in particular the provisions in relation, the provisions of the Common Agricultural Policy and other provisions of European Union law. We don't know how the change suggested would be impacted on by European Union law, and for that reason we think it's unwise to make the change. And in any event, we had no discussion on that, and we weren't furnished with any information. there are two lawyers here, Anya and myself, and over the years I would have been involved in certain aspects of European Union law, but I am not sufficiently informed at this particular time to express a view. But I do have a concern, and it's a concern only, that if we were to make the change suggested, that we would be impeaching on provisions of EU law, and that would not be wise. So we haven't, that's the reason we haven't made that change. 12, we didn't consider 12. And then, what? Oh, sorry. It's been a long weekend. sorry. On 11, can I ask you to vote on 11? Thank you very much. Then 12 we didn't consider, so we go on to 13, and there were some useful suggestions made in relation to 13, and we have put in regulation. I think that was a very prudent suggestion. So it now reads: the state should review and revise regulation and supports. So regulation and supports. And then we have made it clear that the reference to the two areas which were referred to originally were examples only. So we have said, for example, in relation to supports for planting forests, and we've taken up the point, which is a good point, that we should add in there in accordance with best environmental practice. And the second example is encouraging organic farming, and we didn't see we didn't think it was appropriate just to add the solar panels or the wind turbines as examples. It's quite clear that these are just examples, and it keeps the question short. And even though it's question 13, can I have a vote? Yeah, thank you very much. That's it. Yeah. So I just wanted to raise to revert to the point that Mike reminded me of. Thank you very much for doing so. The ancillary recommendations, you can deal with those in the additional reflective document you've got, and I would strongly encourage all of you to complete that document. And to take an example, if you want to make any suggestion in relation to constitutional protection of rights, you can do it in that document. But for the reasons I gave on Friday evening at our private session, we concluded that we shouldn't deal with it specifically in the ballot paper, constitutional protection for environmental rights. So I think that's everything, is it? Oh yes, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Judge, just a question from this table. Will the citizens be getting a copy of the revised ballot?
For voting
of those?
For voting purposes?
For voting purposes.
Well, can I just say that the operation to print 13 individual ballot papers for 100 members is quite considerable, and it's ongoing at the moment. It's a huge operation to try and do that quickly, so we're in the middle of it. Do you mean to take home with you? Is that what you mean? Oh yeah, after the fact we'll give you, so maybe during the break while the voting is happening, we'll do it then. And
oh yes.
Yeah. Oh, by email, absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
Oh yes, you could do that.
I'm trying to think of the trees.
So, I mean,
yeah,
somebody could stay here, and if anybody wanted to see any particular change, we could put it up on the screen.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so where we're at, or just maybe to reflect on next steps, we're almost finished printing the ballot paper. We've been printing it as we've been agreeing it. So I would predict probably 10 more minutes, and then we'll commence voting. I just at this point wanted to make the point that in our rules about voting, we look for observers of the count. So the chair remains to count, or to watch the count, and we need 2 members at all times. So if I could look at this point for volunteers for maybe 4 members, and that way we can swap people out so they don't have to stay for the whole thing. If I could look for a couple of volunteers.
2 from table 3 and
and yeah, from table 5 and table 7. That's perfect.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
your cooperation on
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
we'll be back to you as soon as possible, and I know people are hungry and it's time for lunch. Just to say at this point, the facilitators are free to go, and thank you for your forbearance and staying with us. And we'll be back to you as soon as possible.